we have Jesse Young here, running as a Republican against Norm Dix. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with Ben, and we'll all introduce ourselves as we go around asking the questions. And he will introduce himself as Ben.
Hello, Jesse. Welcome.
Thank you.
I've met you a couple times before, but great to have you. Appreciate it. The first question is, what is the function of the federal government?
To do as little as possible for us. Well, the Constitution would say that the primary purpose is to defend us, and I guess facilitate where the states can't do something. And I think that's a good practical layman's definition of it. Anything above that is too much in my mind. I certainly think as the nation's grown, there's probably been a little. There's been some areas where the government could necessarily expand and probably help us out, but I don't think our founding fathers ever envisioned what we have in front of us right now, where there's intrusive rights to the point where they can tell us what an individual can and can't buy, or what we must buy. I think that from a standpoint of practicality, though, as little as possible to ensure the common good. That's what the federal government should do. You want more?
Well, we can get one.
Okay.
That was a good basic answer. Go.
Why do you feel guilty?
Good.
I bet you one of the meetings. Why do you want to be elected to the position of federal legislator, and what are your primary goals?
Well, the main reason is I care a lot about my kids. It certainly motivated me to, at this age and demographic that I'm in right now, to put my career and family, or put my career on hold, certainly not my family, and but maybe take a shot at this. I mean, there's not a lot of guys. I feel blessed that I have the means to do it. Certainly not wealthy, but I think I've lived very frugally. Quite honestly, I'd like to see more of a youthful perspective in Congress right now, especially given the recent changes that have happened so dramatically over the past couple decades with information technology, with the internet and all these things. There's a certain perspective that I'll bring that I don't see a lot of in Congress right now. More importantly, so there's the youth aspect of it, but there's also just the business aspect of it. You've probably all heard me say my statement now, that asking if people think we have too many lobbyists, lawyers, and career politicians. Now, I think it's a clever phrase, and I like to use it, but I think it actually really drives home a really good point. And that point is that we do have too many of those. There's nothing wrong with being a good lawyer or an attorney, but when you have so many of them, you have a dearth of perspective from another side to view things, and we need that in Congress. We don't have people in Congress right now that can come in and say, well, hey, if we're going to try to make a practical bill to help bring jobs back here, wouldn't it be great if we could understand the inner workings that a company might go through when they need to determine whether they need to offshore, outsource, or keep their staff in-house, and not write legislation that means to shackle them, but kind of really come alongside them and empower them to be successful for the states. There's not a lot of candidates or current congressmen right now that bring that perspective. I think I do. So I looked at that and kind of throw it all together, and I said, well, you know what? I think I should run. I can certainly look my kids in the face and tell them I tried to make their future better.
Why did you pick, though, opposing Dix versus a lesser office?
Well, I think here's something I've come to learn so far. I haven't had a problem doing these type of settings. I certainly have had to adjust my speech and my tone. In the corporate boardroom setting, you get 3 minutes to close $1 million sale. You got to speak really fast, and I've had to learn to slow that down. And maybe even I'm speaking a little bit fast here. I still see it, kind of try to pull back from it. But my perspective has always been from a federal level, and I looked at that and I said, well, when it comes to, aside from talking a little bit fast, it's very easy to do these type of settings if you're coming from a perspective that's true to your nature. I don't have to, when any of you are going to probably ask me a number of questions maybe I haven't even thought of before, I don't think I'll struggle with any of them, because I'm not trying to remember a talking point to give you an answer. I'm simply just going to tell you what I feel about it. But for me, that fits, because when I'm at the movies and with my wife and we get done, the first thing she asks me always, and you'd think I'd clue into this now and be ready for it, is what was your favorite part of the movie, but I'm thinking about politics already. And it's, I'm in the shower, I'm thinking about politics. And it's always at the federal level, so it made sense in my mind, to go after that. But I think I've got a skill set that's needed at the federal level more than the state or local level. So I think I can provide a lot of good there.
I'm Doris Carringer, and, okay, who do you see as the most critical issues facing the country today? And what sorts of solutions would you contribute toward?
Well, I mean, you can start with a number of things. I mean, certainly, we're moving away from our constitutional principles. I don't want that to sound like a talking point, but I'll wrap it around and bring that back in. Quite honestly, in fact, Glenn Beck just did something on this about if you look back in the 60s at what the communist plan for America was, and you look at the goals that they had, they've actually achieved every one of those now, if you believe it or not. And so if we stuck to our constitutional principles, that would be one thing to kind of keep us going off that course. But in truth, I fundamentally believe in the free market. It's blessed me to no end. I had a talk with someone who just got a union job today. He's helping out in the campaign, and as a conservative, he's wondering how that's going to fit there. And I said, listen, you need to tell these guys in the unions too, and anything in there. I bring up unions because typically with that negotiation that goes on there, you typically see a little bit of anti-free market tint that goes on there. I've always felt that I've been blessed more because I had to operate in the free market, because what it forced me to do was look inward and try to build up personal responsibility. And because there was no cap on what I could do, I've been able to grow myself into a niche that, quite honestly, if I'm off my rocker running for this campaign, I'll have a job. I've got a niche where I'm very skilled at, and there's a unique market for my skill set. And what that's allowed me to do is provide for my family at a very young age in a way that most people cannot. I fundamentally believe in the free market, so I would like to see that brought back in the forefront. That would be a priority of mine. But the biggest issue, I think, really starts with fiscal responsibility. And the reason why is because that one issue alone affects every other one that we might want to address. If you want to talk about jobs, or you want to talk about energy independence, or peace through strength, every one of those things will ultimately come back down to how much money we're paying more than we're making. And if we don't have enough money, then these other things become very hard to accomplish. Not just, and I don't want to just respond to these things in a reactive way. I want to aggressively pursue them and engage them. And if we don't start with fiscal responsibility, so of course, so if we led with fiscal responsibility first, that would be number one. But I wanted to say that in the caveat of the Constitution, because the Constitution will underline every one of these issues that we address, so that we don't go down a path that Europe has already transgressed down. I certainly believe that, again, fundamentally the free market works, and if we stick with capitalism, a free market society, and a Republican form of government, then fiscal responsibility can be achieved again, and then we're going to see a lot of people start living the American dream.
What question on that about would you cut any current federal department?
Oh,
Let the guy, that's the next question.
Oh, I didn't even notice that was the next question.
sorry.
I'm sorry, I asked
This
the
is for
question.
us
You want to ask it
when
again?
he
Okay.
Okay, mine is James Carringer, and my question here is, how should the country solve its budgetary issues? And there's a second part to this. If you want to answer that one first.
You know what I think the problem with most Republicans is? The problem is they don't know how to frame the topics in a way that engages the populace in 30 seconds or less.
Right.
What you'll see is typically, and even in the race of reform, or anybody, and I will refuse to do this, by the way. It seems so blatantly apparent to me, and I just wonder why politicians, especially on the Republican side, continue to make the mistake. But the Democrats have done a lot of work at framing an issue up so that when they're on the podium, or when they're in a debate, or when they're on television, they can make their statement in 30 seconds, and then everyone kind of goes, well, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Well, you know, for example, taxes. Well, we're going to tax the rich because they've got enough, and Obama even says that publicly now, and we're going to give to the poor because you guys are the workers that really make this nation go. And everyone kind of goes, well, yeah, that's right, man. That's something. Okay, now, what does a Republican candidate usually do? Well, they come in, and now the thing that we have to know first is that that's a bunch of baloney. And we know that on a conservative standpoint, we're right on the issues. So it's good to know that, but if you don't rework that framework, you're going to get killed, because you can kill that argument, but it's going to take you 3 minutes to do it. You're going to have to explain 3 levels of depth, and everyone's tuned out by that time, and the Democrats get in office. You're going to have to remind me of the question again just to make sure I don't get off course. The immediate problems, is that what it was? Or-
Okay, how should the country solve its budgetary
Okay,
issues?
so the budgetary issues are gonna work this way. We're gonna reframe the argument in a sense, in a way that we can make our point in 30 seconds. Now, this may seem overly simplistic, but no one's done it, and I really think it will work. If we reframe the argument in the terms of a household budget with regard to fiscal responsibility, people will engage that message.
Yep.
Now, here's why, because Norm Dix can line up 50 economists behind him. And if he gets up there, they could have Harvard, Yale, Princeton, and they can be touting that all. If he gets up there and says, we can continue to spend more than we make, everybody's gonna go BS. They just inherently know it. That's why everyone's kind of rising up and getting involved this election cycle anyways, because Obama's been doing that, and everyone's starting to call BS on it. Now, if we come up and we counter that and we say, you know what, just like you do at home every month, when you're trying to find more money at the end of the month, we know that if Washington doesn't start spending less than it makes and start saving some for a rainy day, then we're not gonna, our grandkids, our kids aren't gonna have a future. Everyone will resonate with that message. So if we wanna guarantee the financial solvency of the nation moving forward, we're gonna balance our budget. And if we engage it as a home, from a home household budget type of perspective, then you know what we can do? We can literally start engaging the populace and listing the top priorities that everyone, you know what, I'm gonna believe that 80% of the people will agree on probably the top 80% of the things that we need to focus our budget on. And then what will happen is we'll engage it and we'll start spending, and then once we have more money, it doesn't matter about these other issues. We don't have to worry about, should we spend money on Planned Parenthood, or should we send money down here, or should we give a freebie over to Hamas down in Israel? You know, there's no money left for that. And thus all of a sudden, these issues that we somehow struggle to engage the populace on, because of course, if we don't give money to Hamas, and they're saying, well, then you're causing strife in the Middle East, or if you don't give money to Planned Parenthood, then you're causing some woman to not be able to achieve her career goals because she got pregnant, and you know, we need to make sure she can still go to school, so we're gonna, you know, help. So all of a sudden those arguments go away, and in 30 seconds we've engaged in a way that Democrats can't do. And so that's how we solve it. Is that a specific enough answer? I know I was trying to hit the general point, but it's so long-winded right now.